stands in silence, weathered by wind and time, its gaze fixed eternally toward the east. The Great Sphinx of Giza is one of the most iconic and photographed monuments on Earth, yet it remains one of the least understood. Carved from a single limestone ridge on the Giza Plateau, the Sphinx guards the pyramids like a sentinel, a half-lion, half-man colossus whose origin is whispered rather than declared. For centuries, travelers and scholars alike have stared into its eroded face and asked the same question: who built this and why? Mainstream Egyptology points to Pharaoh Khafre around 2500 BCE, suggesting the Sphinx was crafted as a guardian of his mortuary complex. But even within that tidy explanation, cracks begin to show. There are no inscriptions on the Sphinx itself linking it to Khafre. No cartouches, no names, no dates. A monument of such scale, seemingly created to commemorate a ruler, speaks no name. Why? Local legend tells a different story, older than the dynasties. Arab chroniclers in the Middle Ages claimed the Sphinx predated the Great Flood. Some believed it had been created by an ancient race that possessed wisdom far beyond the Egyptians. Others insisted it held secrets, warnings, embedded beneath its paws, never meant for modern eyes. What's more unsettling is how little of the Sphinx has ever been truly examined. Despite decades of excavation around it, much of its body remained buried in sand until the 20th century. Even now, key areas remain off limits to researchers, as if guarded not just by the weight of stone, but by unseen authority. Could it be that the Sphinx is not merely a statue, but a symbol, or worse, a marker? A sentinel not commemorating a king, but watching over something lost? Perhaps it was never built to glorify the past, but to warn the future. And if so, what was it warning us about? For decades, the story of the Sphinx seemed settled. Egyptologists maintained it was carved around 2500 BCE during the reign of Pharaoh Khafre, neatly aligning with the construction of the second pyramid at Giza. But in the late 20th century, a quiet academic tremor shook the foundations of this accepted history. And it began not with hieroglyphs or royal tombs, but with stone and water. Geologist Dr. Robert Schoch stood before the Sphinx in the early 1990s and noticed something Egyptologists had largely overlooked: the deep vertical fissures etched into the limestone enclosure surrounding the statue. These weren't the horizontal striations typical of wind erosion. They looked like the aftermath of sustained heavy rainfall, something Giza hasn't seen in over 7,000 years. Schoch's conclusion was bold. The erosion patterns indicated that the Sphinx may have been carved at a time when the Sahara was not a desert, but a fertile savanna, possibly as far back as 10,000 BCE. If true, this would place the monument thousands of years before the rise of dynastic Egypt, in a time where, according to mainstream history, complex civilization simply didn't exist. His theory sparked outrage in academic circles, but gained momentum outside of them. Writers, independent researchers, and alternative historians latched onto the possibility that the Sphinx was far older than Egypt, a relic from a forgotten world, one erased by time, climate, or catastrophe. Some even suggested it may have survived a global flood, echoing the myths found in ancient texts from every corner of the earth. Yet official timelines remain unchanged. Critics argue that rainfall alone cannot rewrite history, and that such claims lack archaeological evidence. But the Sphinx remains silent. It neither confirms nor denies, so we are left with a riddle. If the Sphinx truly dates back to a time before Egypt, then who carved it? And more chillingly, Why has that truth been buried so carefully? What if the real mystery of the Sphinx isn't just how old it is, but what else had to be forgotten along with it? By the 1920s, Egypt was in the midst of an archaeological renaissance. The discovery of Tutankhamun's tomb had ignited a global obsession with ancient mysteries, and the Giza Plateau became the stage for fevered excavation. Yet, while the Valley of the Kings captivated headlines, a quieter, far stranger story was unfolding at the feet of the Great Sphinx, one that would later vanish from official accounts. French engineer and antiquarian Émile Barrès was commissioned by the Egyptian government to lead a restoration of the Sphinx beginning in 1925. His team worked tirelessly to clear centuries of sand that had buried the colossus up to its neck. But as they dug deeper, strange whispers began to surface. Barrés's notes, some now fragmented, others reportedly missing, describe workers encountering structural anomalies beneath the statue. Chambers, voids, man-made cavities carved directly into the bedrock. Rumors quickly spread that an entrance had been found near the Sphinx's paws, leading to a tunnel system beneath the monument. Some accounts even claim photographs were taken, now lost or locked away, depicting stone steps descending into the earth. Yet none of these findings made it into the final reports submitted to Egypt's Antiquities Authority. Then silence. No public statements, no follow-up digs. Barrés never published a full account of what his team had encountered, and the excavation was quietly concluded. What little remained was scattered in obscure French-language journals and second-hand accounts. Officially, no chambers existed, no tunnels, nothing unusual. But that silence itself became part of the mystery. Why would potential underground discoveries beneath the most iconic monument in Egypt be redacted or ignored? Was it a matter of protecting fragile heritage? Or did those chambers contain something that threatened the tidy timeline of Egyptian civilization? Nearly a century later, those early dig reports are more valuable for what they don't say. Because if a hidden world was uncovered beneath the Sphinx in the 1920s, then the question becomes, who made sure we'd never see it, and why? In the early 20th century, long before satellite imaging or ground-penetrating radar, a man known as the Sleeping Prophet made a series of predictions that continue to unsettle historians. His name was Edgar Cayce, an American mystic who, while in trance-like states, claimed to access ancient knowledge from lost civilizations. Among his most provocative visions was this: a secret chamber lay buried beneath the Great Sphinx, one that would one day rewrite human history. Cayce referred to it as the Hall of Records, a stone vault containing the complete historical account of Atlantis and the origins of humankind. He claimed it would be discovered between the Sphinx's paws before the end of the 20th century, triggering a dramatic shift in our understanding of the past. At the time, such a claim sounded absurd. There was no known evidence of any chamber under the Sphinx, and Atlantis was already regarded as myth. But decades later, in the 1990s, something unexpected happened. A team led by Dr. Thomas DeBecke and John Anthony West conducted ground-penetrating radar GPR surveys around the base of the Sphinx. The results were startling. The scans revealed clear rectangular anomalies, unnatural voids beneath the monument, including directly between its paws, right where Cayce had predicted. The data suggested chambers cut into the bedrock, perfectly symmetrical, and unlike anything caused by natural geology. Mainstream Egyptologists dismissed the findings or offered vague explanations. Yet the Egyptian authorities, rather than exploring the anomalies, issued restrictions. Further excavation was blocked. No new permits, no drilling, just silence. To this day, The chamber remains sealed. Was it coincidence? Was Casey simply lucky? Or had he somehow accessed something beyond science? And more pressingly, if a chamber is there, why won't anyone open it? The idea that a psychic might have been right all along isn't just unsettling, it's dangerous to the academic establishment, because if Casey's Hall of Records is real, then buried beneath the sand isn't just stone. It's a truth the world may not be ready to face. Few names evoke more controversy in the world of Egyptology than Dr. Zahi Hawass. To some, he is a national hero, a tireless protector of Egypt's ancient heritage. To others, he is the face of an impenetrable wall guarding secrets too inconvenient for mainstream history. For over 2 decades, Hawass held immense power as Egypt's director of antiquities, and during that time, virtually nothing happened on the Giza Plateau without his personal approval, and that includes the Sphinx. Critics argue that Hawass was not simply preserving Egypt's legacy, he was controlling the narrative. His public persona was one of charisma, authority, and absolute certainty. No mystery too large, no theory too fringe. Everything outside the orthodox timeline was quickly dismissed, often with ridicule. In interviews, he bristled at any suggestion that the Sphinx might be older than 2500 BCE. Even scientific data like geological erosion studies and GPR scans indicating underground chambers were waved off or outright denied. But why? Researchers who tried to challenge the official story often found themselves shut out. Permits denied, access revoked, collaborations cut short. Some described a culture of fear where academic careers could be jeopardized simply for asking the wrong questions. Even international researchers with significant backing struggled to get a foot in the door if their theories deviated from the sanctioned timeline. In 2006, when a team from Florida State University attempted to further investigate the subsurface anomalies near the Sphinx, the project was abruptly halted by the Supreme Council of Antiquities. No formal reason was given, just silence. It begs the question, who decides what history we're allowed to know? If the truth is harmless, why block exploration? If the data is wrong, why not debunk it openly? And if there's nothing beneath the Sphinx, why has so much energy been spent preventing anyone from looking? Perhaps the real mystery isn't what's buried in the sand, but who's working so hard to keep it buried. In 1993, something extraordinary happened beneath the ancient sands of Giza, and almost no one heard about it. A team of researchers, including geophysicist Thomas Debicki and Egyptologist John Anthony West, conducted a series of ground-penetrating radar GPR surveys around the Sphinx. The technology, which uses electromagnetic pulses to detect voids and structures underground, offered a chance to peer beneath the monument without digging a single trench. What they found was astonishing. The scans revealed distinct, rectangular anomalies beneath and around the Sphinx. One in particular, directly between its massive paws, appeared to be a symmetrical cavity, roughly the size of a small chamber. Another ran along the sides of the Sphinx's body, aligned with architectural precision. These weren't natural fissures or erosion pockets. The patterns were too clean, too geometric, man-made. The implications were seismic. If chambers existed under the Sphinx, it would lend serious weight to alternative theories, including Edgar Cayce's claim of a hidden hall of records. At the very least, it warranted further investigation, but that's not what happened. Instead, the response was swift and strangely quiet. Shortly after the scans were completed, the Egyptian authorities abruptly shut down the project. Requests to excavate the anomalies were denied. Public disclosure was minimal. The official position? The voids were either geological quirks or misinterpretations. No chambers, no tunnels, nothing to see. But the data told another story. Independent experts who reviewed the scans confirmed the anomalies were real. Some tried to raise the alarm through documentaries, journal articles, even public lectures, only to be met with silence or worse, professional dismissal. The information seemed to disappear into a bureaucratic void buried beneath red tape and academic disinterest. Why would authorities suppress a scientific discovery that could unlock new chapters of human history? What was so threatening about a few cavities in the rock? Unless, of course, they weren't just cavities. What if those empty spaces held something far more dangerous to the official narrative? Something that had to be hidden, not from tomb robbers, but from the truth itself? In 1991, Boston University geologist Dr. Robert Schoch stood before the Sphinx and saw something others had missed or ignored. While Egyptologists fixated on art, alignment, and inscriptions, Schoch focused on the stone itself. And to him, the stone was screaming a different story. The body of the Sphinx, carved directly from the Giza Plateau's limestone bedrock, showed heavy weathering, but not the kind caused by abrasive desert winds. The erosion was deep, vertical, and rounded, the signature of water. Not surface runoff or isolated floods, but prolonged, heavy rainfall over centuries. This detail, so easily dismissed by traditional archaeologists, carried a devastating implication. The last time Giza experienced that level of rainfall was at the end of the last ice age, around 10,000 BCE, long before the pyramids, before dynastic Egypt, and before the supposed rise of organized civilization. Schoch's conclusion? The Sphinx was far older than anyone dared to admit. His theory sparked outrage. Egyptologists accused him of pseudoscience, of undermining decades of research. They pointed to the lack of artifacts or texts from such a distant era. But Schoch wasn't working with stories or timelines. He was working with stone. And in his eyes, the stone didn't lie. The divide became clear. Geology versus Egyptology. Hard data versus historical dogma. One discipline questioned what the rock revealed. The other insisted history had already spoken. But what if the climate itself exposes the truth? What if the Sphinx bears scars not from mere wind and sand, but from a world washed away? A world no longer taught in textbooks? And if the weathering is real, what else has the stone been hiding? Right in plain sight. The Sphinx sits on a plateau that was once not sand, but savanna. Thousands of years ago, the Sahara wasn't a desert. It was alive with rainforests, lakes, and roaming herds of wildlife. The transformation from green to gold began slowly but decisively around 7,000 years ago. And if Dr. Schoch is correct, the Sphinx may have already been ancient by then. This changes everything. If the Sphinx was carved during the last pluvial period, as rainfall data and erosion suggest, it could date back to 10,000 BCE or earlier, a time when the Earth's climate was dramatically shifting after the last ice age. Sea levels were rising, glaciers were retreating, and across the globe, myths of floods and lost worlds began to emerge. It was a time not remembered in official records, but echoed in oral histories and sacred texts. Could the Sphinx have been a witness to that forgotten age? Some researchers argue that it wasn't just shaped by that climate, it was built because of it. Perhaps as a marker, a monument, or a warning, a timeless sentinel left behind by a civilization aware that their world was crumbling, a civilization whose existence mainstream history refuses to acknowledge. Supporters of this theory point to similar anomalies worldwide. Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, submerged ruins off the coast of India, and megalithic sites in South America, all suggesting complex societies long before Egypt, Sumer, or Babylon. If true, the Sphinx isn't just a monument, it's a climatic time capsule encoded in limestone, whispering the story of a planet and a people that modern history has forgotten. Could we be staring at the final footprint of an ancient world swallowed by sand and silence? What else waits beneath the dust of time? Between the paws of the great Sphinx, nestled in the sand like a silent confession, stands a weathered slab of stone known as the Dream Stele. Erected by Pharaoh Thutmose IV around 1400 BCE, it tells a tale that scholars interpret as royal propaganda. But some believe it is something far stranger, a cryptic blueprint encoded in metaphor, hiding truths the ancient priests dared not speak aloud. The stele recounts a dream the young Thutmose supposedly had while resting in the shadow of the Sphinx. In it, the Sphinx, referred to as Horemakhet, or Horus in the horizon, speaks to him, promising kingship in exchange for clearing away the sand that had buried its body. Thutmose obeyed, unearthed the Sphinx, and later became pharaoh. But why record a dream with such devotion? And why does the stele contain symbols and phrases that seem oddly misplaced, as though layered with double meaning? Some researchers point to strange spatial references on the stone, cryptic alignments, and architectural cues that could suggest entrances, tunnels, or chambers hidden beneath the monument. Others note that parts of the text are deliberately eroded, as if time, or something else, had selectively erased key passages. What if the Dream Stele is not just a monument, but a map? Its placement between the Sphinx's paws is no accident. Casey's Hall of Records was also said to lie beneath that exact point. Could the stele have been a carefully encoded message passed from one priesthood to another, disguised as a royal dream to protect dangerous knowledge? And if so, what were they protecting? Perhaps the priests of ancient Egypt knew that someday someone would come searching, that they would need a clue, a code, a whisper carved in stone that could only be understood once the sands had shifted and the world was ready to remember. What messages did ancient hands leave behind, trusting that only the right eyes would ever see them? Leonardo da Vinci was a man of endless curiosity, an inventor, painter, engineer, and anatomist whose notebooks are still being decoded centuries after his death. But buried among his designs of flying machines and dissected hearts are drawings that, at first glance, seem out of place. Cryptic landscapes, weathered faces, and most unsettling of all, a structure eerily reminiscent of the Sphinx. The resemblance is uncanny. One sketch shows a half-lion, half-human figure emerging from the ground, with strange markings etched across its body. Another reveals a figure seated before a monument, gesturing toward what looks like an underground chamber, accompanied by mirror-written text that some believe references hidden knowledge buried in stone. But how could a Renaissance man, living 3,000 years after the Sphinx was built, have drawn what appears to be a coded reference to the same monument and possibly its secrets? Mainstream historians dismiss these parallels as coincidence or symbolic abstraction. Da Vinci, they argue, was fascinated by ancient myth, not actual archaeology. Yet others believe Leonardo may have had access to suppressed manuscripts, ancient maps, or even lost knowledge preserved by secret societies. After all, his associations with the enigmatic priory of Sion and the deeper layers of the Catholic Church have long fueled speculation. Could Leonardo have been one of the last recipients of a hidden tradition, a line of thinkers tracing back to ancient Egypt, preserving fragments of forbidden knowledge. Some claim his sketches align with the very same location where ground-penetrating radar detected anomalies beneath the Sphinx, too close to ignore, too quiet to be coincidence. It raises an unsettling possibility that long before modern science rediscovered the mystery, some already knew it was there. They just didn't dare to say it aloud. How did Leonardo know what he shouldn't have known, and what if the clues were never lost, just hidden in plain sight, waiting for us to see them for what they really are? Long before the Sphinx watched over Giza, before the Nile carved its way through the desert, legend speaks of a different world, a lost civilization swallowed by water and time. Plato called it Atlantis, an island nation of extraordinary knowledge and power, erased in a single night of fire and flood. Mainstream historians call it myth, but to others it's memory, and some believe the final chapter of that civilization is buried not beneath the ocean, but beneath the sands of Egypt, guarded by the Sphinx. This theory hinges on the idea that survivors of the Atlantean cataclysm fled to safer lands, carrying with them knowledge of the stars, mathematics, and architecture. Egypt, fertile and rising, became a new home, but not a blank slate, a place to preserve the past. And what better way to safeguard that legacy than to seal it beneath a monument so massive it would last forever? Enter the Hall of Records. According to Edgar Cayce and echoed by fringe archaeologists, the Hall of Records was constructed to house ancient texts, blueprints, and spiritual truths, a seed vault of civilization itself. Not built by Egyptians, but inherited by them, passed down, guarded, and eventually forgotten. Supporters of this theory note the eerie alignment between Cayce's visions and the anomalies detected beneath the Sphinx in the 1990s. They also point to Egyptian myths of Zep-Tepi, the first time when gods walked among men, and knowledge came from the stars. A poetic memory, perhaps, of a pre-Egyptian world. But if such a chamber exists, why has no one entered it? Is it mere fantasy? Or could it be that the last remnants of a lost world do lie beneath the Sphinx, just beyond reach, hidden by those who feared what would happen if humanity remembered too soon? Did ancient survivors bury the truth where no one would find it until now? The data is clear. Ground-penetrating radar has revealed undeniable anomalies beneath the Sphinx, rectangular cavities perfectly shaped, right where prophecy and legend said they would be. These are not cracks or natural voids. They are chambers. But to this day, no one has opened them. Why? In the early 1990s, after the discovery of subsurface anomalies around the Sphinx, a team of American researchers requested permission to excavate. Their goal was simple: to verify whether these cavities were man-made and, if so, what they might contain. But despite initial enthusiasm, the permits never came. The project stalled. Bureaucracy stepped in. The doors, if there was one, stayed closed. Egypt's Supreme Council of Antiquities offered little explanation. Sometimes it was about conservation. Other times, they claimed the anomalies were irrelevant. Later, it became a matter of national pride. The implication that something as central to Egyptian identity could predate Egypt was considered unacceptable. But to many, the pattern was unmistakable. Every time someone got close to investigating beneath the Sphinx, something or someone stopped them. Is it possible that authorities fear what might be found? That revealing a chamber with origins predating dynastic Egypt could shatter established timelines, religious beliefs, or national narratives? And what if it's not just academic discomfort? What if the chamber isn't empty? Some believe the Hall of Records could contain texts so ancient they challenge the very foundation of history. Others imagine sacred technology or warnings from a previous world, artifacts too dangerous to reveal. Still, the silence remains. We have the tools, we have the data. But the door, if it exists, stays buried beneath centuries of sand and centuries more of fear. Why would modern authorities fear opening a stone door buried in sand? Unless they already know what's on the other side and have chosen, for now, to leave it in the dark. Carved from a single ridge of limestone, the Sphinx is a marvel of ancient craftsmanship, not because of its beauty, but because of the questions it refuses to answer. Among them, one mystery looms larger than most. How was it carved at all? Mainstream archaeology attributes the work to copper chisels and stone hammers used by workers during the reign of Khafre. But this explanation grows fragile under scrutiny. The limestone around the Sphinx isn't uniform. Some layers are soft, yes, but others are dense and brittle. Yet across all layers, the cuts remain remarkably precise. Smooth planes, symmetrical contours, deep channels, tool marks that don't always match what primitive tools should leave behind. Even stranger is what surrounds the Sphinx, especially the so-called Sphinx enclosure. Here, massive blocks were removed with surgical precision and stacked in retaining walls, some weighing dozens of tons. In some areas, the rock appears scooped out as if by machinery rather than muscle. Yet no copper chisel or stone pick, no matter how sharp, could replicate that degree of accuracy or remove that volume without leaving chaos behind. So, what did the builders use? Some researchers believe the evidence points to lost technology, not lasers or sci-fi fantasies, but advanced mechanical systems long forgotten. Precision stone cutting tools, sonic drills, water-powered saws, technologies that may have been practical, even mundane, to their creators, but are now beyond our grasp. To date, no such tools have been found, but then again, perhaps we haven't been allowed to look in the right places. How did the ancients do the impossible without machines? Or is it possible they did have machines, and what we're looking at isn't just a monument from the past, but a fossil of a forgotten age of engineering? While much of the mystery surrounding the Sphinx lies in its age and construction, some researchers have turned their attention to something far less visible: sound. Specifically, the way sound behaves within and around the Sphinx enclosure has given rise to a provocative question. Was the area intentionally designed to resonate? In recent years, acoustic engineers and alternative archaeologists have noticed strange phenomena near the monument. Claps, chants, and vocal frequencies within the enclosure often produce unexpected echoes and vibrations. Some claim that low-frequency tones, when directed at specific points, produce harmonic responses as if the space itself were engineered to amplify certain sounds. This isn't unique to Giza. Around the world, ancient sites like Chavin de Huantar in Peru and Malta's Hypogeum of Halsaflieni exhibit similar acoustic properties, chambers that hum, resonate, and even amplify human voices beyond explanation. Were these anomalies accidental? Or were they part of a now lost understanding of sound and energy? If the chambers beneath the Sphinx, the same ones detected by ground-penetrating radar, exist, could they have been used in rituals or experiments involving resonance? Some theorists suggest that sound was more than ceremony. It was technology, a tool to alter consciousness, to heal, or even to move matter. Imagine an ancient priesthood conducting rites in chambers tuned like musical instruments. using chants and frequencies to interact with the very structure of the stone or with something beneath it. Mainstream science scoffs, citing lack of physical evidence, but sound leaves no fossil, no artifact, only echo. Did the ancients discover natural forces we've only just begun to understand? If the Sphinx was once a machine of stone and sound, then we may have misunderstood its purpose entirely. Not just a monument, but a device, and it may still be waiting to be activated. The Sphinx is not alone. All across the globe, ancient monuments seem to guard secrets hidden beneath them. Great stone sentinels standing over tunnels, chambers, and catacombs that defy conventional explanation. From the temples of South America to the megalithic ruins of Asia, these structures share a chilling pattern. They were built not just to be seen, but to conceal. In Turkey, the sprawling site of Göbekli Tepe predates Stonehenge by thousands of years. Beneath its intricately carved pillars, researchers have uncovered signs of subterranean rooms, some still sealed, others partially explored. At Teotihuacan in Mexico, ground scans beneath the Pyramid of the Feathered Serpent revealed a hidden tunnel system filled with mercury and strange spheres. Its purpose, unknown. In Cambodia, beneath Angkor Wat, aerial imaging has uncovered an entire city grid lost to time. Roads, reservoirs, and hidden temples buried just inches below the surface. Even the Moai statues of Easter Island, once thought to be only heads, were revealed to have full bodies, buried intentionally, perhaps to cover something deeper. So why does this pattern repeat? These aren't isolated cases. Around the world, we find evidence that ancient builders were not just thinking vertically, but downward. They carved into bedrock, sealed rooms in silence, and constructed monuments above them. Monuments like the Sphinx. What were they hiding? Knowledge? Rituals? Or something they feared would one day be found? Why are so many ancient wonders hiding something just beneath our feet? It's as if the ancient world whispered the same message in 100 different tongues. Look deeper. Because the truth was never meant to sit in the open. We're taught that civilization began in Mesopotamia, grew in Egypt, and blossomed in Greece and Rome. But what if that's not the full story? What if there was something before, a lost chapter of humanity, erased not by myth, but by time? Some researchers believe the similarities among ancient cultures aren't coincidental. They point to shared symbols: serpents, sun discs, pyramids, and sacred geometry. Civilizations separated by oceans somehow built megaliths with uncanny precision, aligned to celestial events, and revered gods who descended from the skies. The stories vary, but the blueprint remains. Take the Sphinx, for example. Its leonine body and human face echo motifs found as far away as India and Mesopotamia. The Egyptian concept of Zep Tepi, the first time, describes an era when gods ruled earth and knowledge was gifted, not earned. Compare that to the Mayan Popol Vuh, the Indian Yugas, or the Sumerian king list, all describing forgotten ages long before history began. Could these be fragmented memories of a global civilization, not ruled from a single empire, but scattered like seeds after a cataclysm? Some call it Atlantis. Others refer to it simply as the Ancients. Whatever the name, the idea is the same: that before the rise of known history, there was a people with knowledge far beyond what their ruins suggest. And the Sphinx? It may be one of their final messages, a monument not to Egypt, but to survival, a marker left behind to guide those who came later, a breadcrumb in stone. What if everything we thought we knew about ancient history is wrong? And what if the Sphinx is more than a relic? What if it's a riddle left by forgotten architects, waiting for someone someday to finally solve it? If the Sphinx holds secrets beneath its paws, chambers, records, knowledge, then why, after decades of technological advancement, do we still know so little? Why have excavations been denied, data suppressed, and questions left unanswered? Some say it's academic caution. Others believe it's something far more deliberate. In the eyes of many independent researchers, there's a quiet war being waged, not with shovels or stones, but with silence. Mainstream institutions, from universities to national governments, have long resisted claims that threaten the established timeline of civilization. Anything suggesting a pre-Egyptian monument, let alone an Atlantean archive, is dismissed as pseudoscience. Not debated, not tested, just ignored. But why? Because truth, in this case, is dangerous. If the Sphinx predates Egypt, it challenges the entire framework of human progress. It shakes the pillars of archaeology, religion, and national identity. Acknowledging the possibility of a lost civilization, one perhaps more advanced than once believed, means rewriting textbooks, reevaluating faith traditions, and confronting the idea that we are not the pinnacle, but the aftermath. Religious institutions might fear the implications for origin stories. Governments may worry about claims to heritage. And academics, whose careers are often built on the foundations of known history, have much to lose in a world that demands they start over. So the system defends itself the only way it knows how, by keeping the lid sealed. Who benefits from keeping the past buried? The answer might be everyone who's afraid of what would happen if it were ever dug up. Not all secrets are hidden out of fear. Some are guarded out of duty. Among those who believe in the deeper mysteries of the Sphinx, a quieter theory circulates, not of suppression, but of stewardship. The idea that certain knowledge buried in chambers beneath ancient stone is protected not to withhold truth, but to delay its arrival, because the world may not be ready. Across history, there have always been those who believed some knowledge was sacred and that revelation had to come in stages. Ancient mystery schools spoke in riddles. Esoteric texts hid meanings in layers. Even the architects of religious texts often encoded wisdom for those with ears to hear. Could the Sphinx be part of that tradition? A vault built to preserve something not for the past, but for the future? If a Hall of Records truly exists, it might contain information that could destabilize the world as we know it. Lost technologies, forbidden histories, alternative truths about humanity's origin or destiny. Information that, once released, cannot be unlearned. And so, perhaps, there are those unseen, unknown, who have chosen to wait, to hold the key until the questions grow loud enough, until the danger of knowing becomes less than the danger of staying blind. This is not the work of villains, but guardians, keepers of a legacy that transcends nations, religions, and science. But how long can they wait? What if the sands continue to shift, the earth continues to quake, and time, their greatest ally, begins to run out? What if some mysteries are never meant to be solved, or worse? What if we're about to solve them, and the truth waiting beneath the Sphinx is one we can never return from? The tools we possess today would have seemed like magic to the ancients. Ground-penetrating radar, LiDAR mapping, drone-based thermal imaging, and AI-assisted archaeology, all capable of revealing secrets buried beneath layers of stone and sand. And yet, the most iconic monument on Earth may still be hiding its greatest truth, untouched, unexplored, just inches beneath its paws. In recent years, several international teams have proposed new surveys of the Sphinx, using these modern methods, non-invasive techniques that could confirm once and for all whether the anomalies detected in the 1990s truly point to artificial chambers. Proposals have been made, blueprints drawn, funding offered, but again and again the answer has been the same: denied. Still, pressure is mounting. As public interest grows and independent institutions gain more access to the tools of discovery, the gatekeepers may not be able to hold the line forever. Some speculate that rogue surveys are already underway, conducted quietly, awaiting the political shift that will allow the data to be released. And with advances in AI, even existing scans can now be reanalyzed in ways unimaginable just a decade ago. Every grain of data may hold a clue, waiting for the right algorithm to see what human eyes missed. It's no longer a question of if, it's a matter of when. Could we be standing on the edge of a discovery that changes everything? A door unopened for 12,000 years. A message locked in stone. A truth powerful enough to rewrite the story of civilization. The Sphinx has whispered its mystery for millennia. Maybe, just maybe, we're finally ready to listen. The Sphinx endures, silent, weathered, ancient. For all our technology and theory, all our scans and speculation, it still refuses to yield its secrets completely. And perhaps that's why we're drawn to it. Not because of what we know, but because of what we don't. There's something haunting about a riddle carved in stone that has outlasted empires. It reminds us how little we truly understand, how fragile our timelines are, how quickly sand can bury truth. For every fact unearthed, a dozen questions rise in its place. Who built the Sphinx? When? Why? Was it a symbol of power or a warning from the past? A monument or a machine? Is there a chamber beneath its paws? Or is the chamber merely the myth we need to believe in because it means there's still more to discover? The pursuit of knowledge is what defines us, but so does the fear of it. The deeper we dig, literally and metaphorically, the more we confront truths that challenge everything: history, identity, even the purpose of civilization itself. Perhaps the real purpose of the Sphinx was never to answer a question, but to provoke one, to remind us that mystery is not a flaw in the human story, it is the heart of it. Because maybe the greatest mystery isn't what we've lost, but what we've forgotten. A memory buried not just beneath stone, but within us, waiting to be awakened. In the end, the Sphinx doesn't need to speak. Its silence is enough. It still whispers through wind and time to those willing to listen. The past is not done with us, and its secrets are still waiting.